Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Bethesda Sabbath Fellowship. We are not open yet. It's been almost a year. 612-315-6778. Call before you try to attend. Our building is still locked. We cover the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know about the end times, your reality, your existence, our existence. We try not to be disparate. We try to harmonize what's going on in the world with what's going on in the Bible and see if it makes sense. We're Bethesda Sabbath Fellowship. The New York Times is trying to scare you right now. They're telling you about wildfires and heat waves that are coming, and droughts and floods and hurricanes and all sorts of horrible things, and all these risks that are going to occur because of global warming or whatever you want to call it, and climate change, you could call it. And so they have their own agenda on this. They're trying to scare you. They state, this is very interesting, they're not stating anything related to God causing these things, and I'm going to try to show that to you. Okay, I'm going to show you that it came from outside of our sphere. It has nothing to do with global warming. But they're showing their data and their data points, and yes, many of these things are problems right now. And this is coming from the World Economic Forum, the UN. It's very interesting. I mean, if you want to spend the time and figure out how they came up with this kind of a report, I'm not interested in reading the whole report, but I'm intrigued with their data points. I think it's all related to 1859 and really what's happened since then. I think we're experiencing a wobble, and the wobble started in about 1859 and went forward. So we'll see. My argument is rather than man is kicking in the end times and global warming and things like that God is kicking in the end times. So let's see. First of all, we'll go to Isaiah 66, which is the end of Isaiah, and an important book, where God says, "Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. And what kind of a house will you build for me? And what would you devise for my rest? Didn't I myself make all these things?" Then he comes back in John 1 and says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and he was with God in the beginning, and all things came to be through him, and with him nothing had been made." Interesting. He is the life, he is the life, the light of mankind. The light shines in the darkness has not suppressed it, it comprehends it not. So this is from Ben Davidson. I follow him very closely. He is not a prophet because he's a Jewish kid that was raised Episcopalian, I believe it was, Anglican basically, and then kind of fell out of love with God, and now he's trying to tell us, warn us, so to speak, of what's happening. And he sounds like a prophet because he sounds like he's quoting the Bible, and he knows that, okay? And he doesn't really want to, but it matches with the Bible. So let's test it out. The South Pole has left Antarctica, and the North Pole is racing toward the Arctic Ocean. And by the way, this is from his site, themagneticreversal.org. The magnetic poles are getting ready to flip. This is from SWARM and ESA, that's the European Space Agency. Magnetic field began weakening in 1600. Okay, that has nothing to do with global warming. The magnetic field weakened 10% from the 1800s to 2000. Okay, magnetic field was weakening 5% per century and now is weakening 5% per decade. Wow, it's weakening rapidly. Reversals can take less than 100 years, yes. Reversals can lead to extinction level events, yes. And they can lead to biblical floods, yes, absolutely. So, once again, he's not claiming to be a biblical prophet, but he is discussing issues that we need to discuss because it's in the Bible. We try not to twist the Bible, and it's in the news. Whether it's coming from the UN or it's coming from whatever source, but it's biblical, people, and you'll see it today as I go through the reports. So he's saying two major things that are coming are the poles could potentially shift, let alone wobble. I mean, they are wobbling, and the field, the magnetic field, the magnetosphere is weakening. So this is from a report from May 10th of 2020, and then I'm going to tie it into something newer. And so the the magnetosphere is weakening. This is one report of it. And I'm claiming that this is not disparate with the Bible, that it actually sounds like the Bible. So here's another chart from May 10th of 2020, and it shows that hockey stick occurring through, a 20 to 40 possibly. Okay, so the magnetosphere thinned 70% from zero, from the creation date, to 1840. Whatever you want to argue is the creation date, it was 70% loss. Then from 1840, well before the industrial age, it thinned 30% so far, but it's thinning faster. Globally, the magnetic field has weakened 10% since the 19th century. This is NASA, people, okay? This is their report. This is another report here from NASA or European Space Agency. Over the last 150 years, the magnetic field has lost 15% of its strength. That's significant. This is SWARM or ESA. It doesn't matter. You can go to January 30th, 2021 and see the video and see the data points yourself. Previously, researchers estimated the field was weakening about 5% per century, but the new data revealed the field is actually weakening 5% per decade, or 10 times faster than thought. Okay, that means that you could have a flip at some point in time based on this occurring. Okay, this is another report that's very interesting because he says it really kicked in 2017. And I'm going to argue that that is a Jubilee year. And it's a quiet one because we didn't see anything huge occur, but big things like this, losing a magnetosphere and potentially either a wobble or a polar flip is huge. So here's their study again from the 27th of January, 2021. Fairly fresh, people. Okay, so let's read the Bible and see if this matches up with what we're seeing in the earth. For God is angry with every nation, furious with all their armies. He has completely destroyed them, handed them over to slaughter. Their slain will be thrown out. The stench will rise from their corpses. The mountains will flow with their blood. The host of heaven will decompose. That's basically part of it. The magnetosphere is part of the host of heavens, okay? Heavens themselves will be rolled up like a scroll. That is actually the magnetosphere, okay? And all their array will wither away like a grape leaf that falls from a vine or a withered fig from a fig tree. Okay, let's see if that sounds like Revelation 6. And it does. That was Isaiah 34. Then I watched as he broke the sixth seal. We're not there yet. We're getting closer, though. And there was a great earthquake, and the sun turned black as sackcloth worn in the morning, and the full moon became blood red. The stars fell from heaven to earth, just as a fig tree drops its figs. Now, the stars, Astarte or Kokavim in the Hebrew, would be more like... it could be a moving planet, it could be a moving star, it could be a meteorite. The Jews were more specific. The Greeks didn't care. It was just something up there moving, okay? But the Jews knew the constellations and they knew the planets and things like that. But they did cite that it's like a fig tree dropping its figs when shaken by a strong wind. The sky receded like a scroll. Doesn't that sound like the magnetosphere being rolled up and every mountain and island where it was removed from its place? Okay, so are we talking about a wobble or a full flip? And what does a flip mean? And have we ever had this occur before? According to Ben, yes, we've had it about every 12,000 years. Now, I don't know where he gets his data points from, but it's intriguing to see that. And was that built into the earth at the time of creation, or did it actually happen? Has the earth been around longer than we expect? I don't know. I don't have to argue that point. I just have to say it sounds like we're going into another one of these. So that means that you should see the North Pole move, the magnetic pole, not the literal, but anyway, you should see it move towards North America at first, but then now it's rushing towards Russia. Does that mean a pole shift or a wobble? I don't know. This is Ben stating it's possible that we could have a 90-degree tilt in the Earth, which would then cause horrific things to occur, and he thinks that the poles are going to chase each other around and cause a 90-degree drift and then come back again at some point in time. And, he's arguing that you'll survive through, or somebody will, not everybody. I mean, obviously, maybe 4 billion people would die, according to the Bible. And so you want to be in the right spot to be able to survive through this. So this is another report, Natural Geoscience, where they're basically saying substantially weakened in its signature on Earth's surface is this core, that the magnetosphere, it's allowing the pole to accelerate towards Siberia fast now, okay? And it's moving. There's just no doubt about it. Is it a wobble or is it a polar shift? Okay, so let's check the verses out again. This is Isaiah 24. Terror, pit, and trap are upon you. you who are living on the earth. He who flees from the sound of terror will fall into the pit. He who climbs up from the pit will be caught in the trap. For the windows, I'm arguing the magnetosphere is thinning, above have been opened, and the earth's foundations shake. The earth cracks and breaks open. The earth crumbles to pieces. The earth trembles and totters. Is that the wobble or a pole shift? Could be either one. The earth staggers to and fro like a drunk. Is that a wobble or a pole shift? Sways back and forth like a watchman's shelter, like a hut. Its transgression weighs heavy upon it. It will fall and not rise again. When that day, that's Bayom Hahu, comes, Adonai, God, will punish the armies of the high heaven. Now that's a weird one. That is not actually the heaven word. That is Marom. So it's not Shemayim. It's Marom. Marom would be just above our heads, probably the mountaintops, basically up to the moon, okay? And it's very interesting. So he's going to punish the armies of the high heaven, the Marom, that would be fallen angels, and the kings of earth, both. Very interesting when you read that in the Hebrew. Continuing on, Peter would describe it this way. Now, Peter was the least scientific of all the guys. He was the most charismatic, maybe, but he wasn't a scientist. He may not have been that well educated, but he knew his scriptures. And by that means of these things, the world of that time was flooded with water, so that's Noah, and destroyed. It is by that same word that the present heavens and earth, having been preserved, are being kept for fire until the day of judgment, when ungodly people will be destroyed. However, the day of the Lord, Bayom Hahu, we would call it in Hebrew, will not come like a thief. On that day, the heavens will disappear with a roar, and the elements will melt and disintegrate, and the earth and everything in it will be burned up. Since everything is going to be destroyed like this, what kind of people should you be? You should be led, you should lead holy and godly lives. You should be led by God. Okay, so Peter gets it. He sees what's happening and what's going to happen. So getting back to suspicious observers, he's saying these are the sources: NASA, ESA, ETH, DTU, MIT, WDC, others. They're arguing that it's thinning actually faster than we expected, much more. So NASA is more conservative on the left-hand side. Actually, it's more liberal, more of a wild extreme off to the right-hand side, which is MIT. Either way, it's not a good report. And then one other argument is, of course, as I mentioned, this 2017 kickoff. And so we have a South Atlantic anomaly, which is, in this case, it's weird, guys. Imagine that the magnetosphere is so thin down near Australia and the South Atlantic region that you would have UV issues. You burn very quickly, and it can cause cancer so much faster than ever before. So this all kicked off in 2017, even more so, as it thinned even more. Now, we're going to take it back to 1859. And I'm intrigued by this because we have the Quebec blackout of 1989, but 1859, they cite it here, that kicked off the wobble. And I'm going to give you some historic data points and see if you agree with me or not. Frankly, if you don't, I don't care. But that's the Carrington event in 1859. It was a huge situation where a CME blasted out. If it was today, it would shut down everything, people. This was a powerful event, and we don't know when it would happen again, but because our shields are so low right now, because the magnetosphere won't protect us from this type of an event if we have another one. And according to Ben and other sources, we're due for one of these, okay? So this was 1859. You can read down below. The massive solar flare erupted on the sun, blasting high energy light and charged particles at the earth. It was a CME, and it produced brilliant auroras. So you will see the auroras as a result of a CME. You saw it as far south as Hawaii and Cuba. It destroyed telegraph equipment, shocked operators, ignited telegraph paper. It could happen again, okay? It could. And so this describes the Carrington event. And I'm saying that God kicked that off. That did not come from human involvement because it was 1859, okay? We really didn't pollute the earth at that point in time. There was no global warming. God kicked this off. And I'm saying this is what was going on at that time. We have Mark Twain in Jerusalem in 1867, right after that, and he's describing Jerusalem as a desolate country whose soil is rich enough, but is given over wholly to weeds, a silent, mournful expanse, a desolation. We never saw a human being on the whole route, hardly a tree or shrub anywhere. The olive trees and the cactus survive, but it was worthless soil, the most deserted of a country. So Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens. Okay, this is him walking around and checking things out and describing it as desolate. He described it as the smell of camel dung. So once again, Mark Twain, it's a curse. And there's his quote again, as you can see. And I'm also saying another witness, and I'm going to give you two witnesses. The other one was Moses ben Nachman and Nachmanides. And so he's a rabbi, and he was there 600 years, almost exactly to the day in 1267. And he said basically the same thing on the bottom here. Many are Israel's forsaken places, and great is the desecration. The most sacred the place, the greater the devastation it has suffered. Jerusalem is the most desolate place of all. Two witnesses. Okay? And now, according to Deuteronomy and Moses, the foreigner shall come from a far land and say, when he sees these plagues of the land and the sicknesses wherewith the Lord has made it sick. Okay, so when's this foreigner? In the generation to come, this foreigner will show up. It could be Mark Twain. It sounds like it. And so he confirmed the curses that occurred, and I'll give you the timing too. It'll be interesting. So there was not a solitary village throughout its extent. So that's Mark Twain. Once again, more quotes from Mark Twain that you can read if you want to. You can stop this and pause. Then, right at the same exact moment that Twain is there, Charles Warren, and maybe you've heard of him with the Jack the Ripper case and things like that, wonderful man, he went underground and excavated because Mark Twain was up above. So you have another witness of this too, that the land was desolate, but there was water underneath, and he found Hezekiah's tunnel. And so he found the water sources. He described them very, very well. So it was amazing that he was allowed to do so. So it's really pretty cool. So that's set up for this. So imagine from Av 9 of 70 Common Era, when the temple fell, to 1895, exactly to this date, November 10th, 1895, when Herzl said that we have no place in Europe. We have no place. We need to have a Jewish state. So then 1897, he had the Congress. But 666,000 days from basically 4 years after this sword in the sky that hung over Jerusalem for nearly a year, and it looked like a comet, that kicked off the desolation of Jerusalem for 666,000 days forward. So from Av 9 of 70 AD all the way forward, 666,666 days, there was no rain. And then suddenly it came back because God kickstarted it, not human beings. So once again, here's the Congress in 1897, and then suddenly we have a Jewish state in 1947-48, and we have the Holocaust in between. So I'm saying God kicked it. God kick-started it, and he's going to kick-start the end too. So he kick-started 1859, and he's going to kick-start whenever things start wobbling even more now. And as a result of God kick-starting, Israel is blooming. And God said, I will make it bloom. Cypresses will grow in place of thorns. Myrtles will grow instead of briars. This will bring fame to Adonai as an eternal, imperishable sign. So he will give you peace, and he will give you this blooming countryside. And the countryside will clap, and it is. And this is what Israel looks like today. And only a few years ago, it didn't look like this. So a couple more verses, just so you can be aware. The branch of the Lord will be beautiful and glorious. The fruit of the earth will be excellent and comely for those that have escaped of Israel. The Spirit is poured out, and the wilderness becomes fruitful field. Fruitful field is deemed a forest. So this is Isaiah 4:2, 32:15, and 35:1-2. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. And that's Israel today. Beautiful. So I'm saying that that's what God has kicked off. I'm also saying that people are talking about horrifying ways the earth could end. And I just thought I'd cite a couple of these real quick, just so you're aware of it. So they think it could be the molten core might cool, or the sun could die and expand, or this one's interesting. when the magnetosphere, we could lose our magnetosphere, and I already cited that to you. And this is the sun could become but the sun is still a star, and stars die. Okay, fine. That's number 4. Number 5, number 6, number 7, 8. Here it is. A rogue planet could hit us, a rogue planet there. Asteroids, that makes sense. Yes, it could happen. A planet could hit, I don't know, a black hole? No. Obliterated by a gamma ray burst? Maybe. Universe could go into pieces like a final big rip. Okay, interesting. So that's their opinions. The most interesting one was number 5 here. Asteroids and comets will bombard the planet at some point in time. So where are we in this process? We're in the birth pangs. We're in the seals. We'll get to the tribulation at some point in time. We'll get to the great tribulation after that. The fire will come. It will be there. You'll have to find your Goshen. We're coming up on Passover right now, and the story, we just finished the story of the Jews, the Hebrews, we'll call them, leaving Egypt. Well, you know, you're going to have to find that. And because the seals are going to get worse and worse and worse, and really from seal 6 all the way through trumpet number 4, you're going to see debris coming from the skies. You're going to see more and larger debris coming from the skies. It'll all be organic. I'll be able to explain it cosmologically, but the world is going to blame it on Christians. So get ready for that, because they're going to blame global warming on us. So what are you supposed to do? It's a wedding coming up. You need clean garments. So you need faith. And that's how faith in Yeshua is going to get you clean garments. And that's what's going to happen. So that's the end of the story. That's the end of this video. Thank you very much for participating with me. And once again, call us before you show up. We hope to open again, but I don't want to take one of those injections, so to speak, to be able to open again. So I don't know what's going to happen. And our landlord has not described exactly what we're going to do. But stay with us and pray for us. Thank you. Bye-bye.